word. Hello, John, and hello, Father
Hello,
Sean.
Wilbur. Yeah.
Okay, so today we're going to discuss part two of what we were talking about yesterday. We're going to discuss wealth, philanthropy, and the motives behind charitable giving. Andrew Carnegie argued in The Gospel of Wealth that rich people have a moral duty to use their surplus wealth for the benefit of society. More recently, Elon Musk said that giving money away is difficult because there is a difference between creating the appearance of goodness and achieving real good. These questions also arise in the debate over the restoration of Notre Dame Cathedral, where some of the world's wealthiest families and companies made enormous public donations. So, should philanthropy and be judged by the donor's motives, by the results it achieves, or by a combination of both? My first question for John Malone. Andrew Carnegie argued that wealthy people should treat surplus wealth as a trust for society. Is this a moral duty or does it give rich people too much power, John?
Right. Well, Andrew Carnegie, uh, I think no point in pontificating. If he was doing good, just go and do it. And which he did with the libraries to help people that were poor and mightn't be able to afford books, that they could now borrow books from the library and be able to sort of read the books that they weren't able to read. So it was a very good thing that he did. He used his money for good in that respect, and you put libraries in this country all over in towns and villages, and probably in England as well. But we're concerned about this country. Britain was wealthy enough in this time, and they could afford to do those things themselves. Whether they did or not is another day's work. But suffice to say that we benefited here, and we had libraries. And when I was a young little whippersnapper, I was able to use the library in Hoth in the children's section, and we knew the lady there. She was Maid Thunder. No, she wasn't Thundry, but that was her surname, and so we were able to borrow the books, and so we read these books that we had in the children's section from a young age, and so therefore I had an interest in reading literature at a comparatively young age. That mightn't have been available to people that were before me. But Andrew Carnegie did a very good deed there, and he used his wealth wisely.
Okay, so you would probably argue then that he didn't have too much power. He'd done it very, very well, and that he felt he probably had a moral duty and that he's done a good job. And I think we'd all agree with that. What do you think,
Well,
Father Sean?
I think
Is there
aside from the moral duty that he did, he did good, and I think that's the way to do it. Don't pontificate about it. Just do it, and keep your opinions to yourself. Just do the good that you do, without sort of standing on ceremony at that. Do you know what I mean?
hmm
Don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing, as Father Sean said there recently. So that's what I'd say about Andrew Carnegie. He did good, and that's the way to do it.
Okay, and then Father Sean, you've seen Andrew the Carnegie libraries all over Ireland, I'm sure abroad as well. So what's your opinion there? Too much power, or did he carry out? Is it a moral duty? Do you think that these rich people have?
Well, I mean, God Himself, reminds us that we have a moral duty. In other words, the law of God is to love God with all you have and love your neighbor as yourself. So we have a moral obligation to love our neighbor in whatever way we can do it, in whatever way we choose to do it. And we also, as human beings, we have a psychological need to give. But I would disagree with him in the sense I disagree with anybody who tries to tell somebody else what to do with their money and how to do it. They can give advice, but suggesting, for example, that people's money that was left over when they died should be given to society, I think that's ridiculous. Because once you take away people's right to private property and to do with it whatever they want, then I think you interfere with human nature itself. But yeah, I mean, it certainly was a good thing, and we all have an obligation actually to share what we have, because the Catholic Church has always taught that poverty is a virtue,
Okay.
and that doesn't mean, to be materially poor, but it does mean that we have to develop a spirit of availability, making our time, our talent, and our treasure available. And obviously, that's what Carnegie did, and that's what we're all called to do, actually.
Okay. John, I just want to ask you, Carnegie said that the man who dies rich dies disgraced. How might do you think Carnegie respond to Elon Musk's claim that effective giving is extremely difficult? A lot of these philanthropists around the world, these rich people, they find it difficult to let go of their wealth because they don't really know what's going to happen to it, what's going to become of it. What would you say?
Well, if they're living in the real world, there's plenty of opportunities to do good with wealth if you're that way inclined. And Elon Musk is reputed to be the richest man in the world, and he's so preoccupied with electric cars and sending people to Mars and this, that, and the other. If you're too occupied with what you do, then you don't have time to reflect about the broader picture of how to do good in the world. And it's a very straightforward situation. I mean, I even know what to do good with whatever resources I have, and help those that are doing good and protecting life from conception to natural death and all the rest of it, and subscribe in a monthly way to help these ones that I couldn't do it myself, if you like, and all these people that are doing good. Support them, and people that are looking after the poor in a practical way, like the Capuchins giving food and shelter to these poor people that are adrift in the world, and God help them, and helping them at least to survive in that way. My sister gave me a little story there when she was working as a reception in the Royal Hotel in Holt, and it was the winter time, and she saw a man sleeping in the porch in the church. You go up steps to this, it's the Church of the Assumption, and you go up steps, and he was sleeping there. So she got a blanket and paid for it in the hotel, and went over and covered him with the blanket. And some people that were looking after people of that caliber said he would have died only for that blanket. They come across her, and they were able to find out who did what she did. And that's a little story of doing good where it occurs. And Mr. Musk should have something. If he's that wealthy, he should be able to sort of take time out to see where his some of his money could do good, and stop making stupid excuses. Perhaps he wants to go to Mars.
John Malone shooting from the hip. Yes, Father. Yesterday we covered something, and you were saying sacrifice and intention. There's two important things that are important when somebody's giving away money in it's the philanthropists. And it made me think to myself, okay, so you have somebody who gives away 100 million, and you have somebody who only has 10 euros in their pocket, and then they can't barely afford to eat, but they still give away the 10 euros. I think that's where you were going with that, and that the
Right.
sacrifice, the intention is the most important thing. And it made me think to myself, okay, so if a billionaire gives 100 million to Notre Dame Cathedral, but what about if he has loads of money, but a lot of these people have very little time, like Elon Musk, very little time. If they give their time in the cathedral, does that change the thing a little bit? Because that's a major sacrifice. Their time is very valuable.
It does, because actually, when it comes to helping others, it's much easier to give money than it is to give time,
Hmm.
or to give talent. Like you were saying yourself, when you see a man or a woman who is homeless, and you stop and talk to them, and recognize their existence, and that they're a human being, and so on and so forth, that's actually more valuable and more helpful than whatever money you might give them. Because you first of all, you're entering into a relationship with them. You recognizing them as a fellow human being. You're maybe trying to give them some encouragement and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's easy to give money, easy to give money, but giving your time means giving yourself. Giving your talent means giving yourself. And that's the real gift. The greatest gift anybody has to give is themselves. You
Yeah,
know,
I like
now
that. Yes.
Like John was saying, we can't, we can't personally help the people, in Tanzania or some other poor country, but we can help them through organizations. Yeah, that's true.
Hmm.
But it's not just, it's, as I said, I think to you before, I think we make, from the church's standpoint, we make a big mistake, when we reach out to the poor with material things, but we don't address them spiritually. Jesus fed the 5,000, or over 5,000, but he fed them in order to prepare them for what he was about to do, which was mainly to make himself the bread of life, in the Holy Eucharist. So the job of the church, yeah, is to help people materially, but the primary job of the church is to help people spiritually, because we're all poor spiritually. But in answer to your question, giving time is far more effective than just simply giving money. It's easy to
Okay.
give money.
Okay. John, we're coming back to Elon Musk again. There's been many organizations badly managed, and there's been many charities badly managed in Ireland. We have a highly regulated charity regulation industry. But is Elon Musk correct that badly planned philanthropy can fail? And can this argument become an excuse for billionaires to give away? Sometimes they might not want to give away, and they might have a bit of an excuse there, and they need a bit of a jump to give away the money. So, what do you think?
Well, I think people that are wealthy should have put some aside for some other person other than themselves, some reliable person, trustworthy, to be able to decide where his money can go. If he's not capable of making decisions in that area himself, he can delegate it to somebody that has that sort of goodwill and knowledge to be able to, because the world is full of places where there's help needed, and um, and that it can benefit. Uh, like spending time, as Father Sean says, with people is a very good thing. You can do one can do that in an individual capacity. But in the ordinary course of events, it's not often possible because they're not around. If you're in the city, you see them, but you don't kind of come across them in the country like where I live here. I don't come across anything of that caliber. So, but I think that's the solution there. And excuses of the kind that he has come out with is a kind of an abdication of duty
I
to care
suppose,
for those that when you have excess money, you can't take it with you. What the goodness. And coming out with that rubbish is it doesn't say much for his intentions.
well, no, these are not Elon Musk's. Anyway, okay. So, I think, look, the problem here is that with philanthropy, right, it's not like you can go and do a course on how to give or do a degree on how to give. It's a gray area, but I suppose a good place for people to start would be Andrew Carnegie's book, The Gospel of Wealth.
Well, I think no, well, that was them times, and that's about I think 100 years ago or something. But nowadays there are it's a different kettle of fish. Each individual has their own individual way that they go about, and some people have been left money by other ones that were wealthy, and so I think that it's very straightforward for anybody that has the welfare of those less fortunate in the world to devise a system that can help in a material sense and devote some bit of time also to speaking about whatever it is that they are doing, and to support others that are doing something similar. It's a very straightforward thing, and if you've got that spiritual business in your heart and soul, you just know what to do. It's not a difficult situation. And I'm surprised that a person that has accumulated so much money finds it difficult to sort of be able to give to charity and give to those that are in need, and to provide even services for those people. I mean, it's very straightforward. I'm surprised at a man of his ability to be so remiss in that area.
Okay. Father Sean, I just want to
Yeah,
ask you, sorry, yeah, go ahead there, Father Sean.
I was just going to say there that you also have to use the virtue of prudence because nobody wants things to be wasted. I think what has put a damper actually on charitable giving has been the corruption in some of these charities,
Hmm.
where you have the CEO of the charity making over 400,000 a year in salary, and where the chair of the charity is bringing in his family as workers in the charity as well.
Yes,
I
yes.
think that actually has given charity a bad name. And I know there's a charity regulator, in the country. And I know that some charities have been identified actually as being corrupt. Like you have a charity, for example, where maybe 60 to 70% of the donations go to administration. And that means maybe less than 20% actually go to the people for whom it was intended to begin with.
Hmm.
So, and there are charities, for example, that I would not give a penny to because I know that the highest percentage of whatever I give will not go to those for whom I intended. So when I give, actually, I give to somebody that I know who will
Very good.
actually use the money for the particular charity, for the particular to help the particular people who are in need and whatnot. I think what Musk is talking about as well is that nobody like you would always want to believe that your money when you give that is going to help people. But if you're not sure it's going to help people, that's going to cause a degree of hesitancy when it comes to the giving.
Hmm.
Now, I mean, the church has always taught, well, if you give, you give, and so you're going to benefit yourself, regardless of what happens to the donation that you make. But you have to be prudent as well. When I was in America, for example, we used to send so much material to South America, and then we found out actually that most of it was ending up in the black market you know so we stopped, and then we located people who were there, and we send the material exactly to them, like medications, clothes, other things as well, because we knew that they would distribute it the way it was intended to begin with. So prudence is important.
Okay. Yesterday, John, we spoke about Notre Dame Cathedral, some aspects of that. I know you're not too happy with. Okay. Father Sean was talking about, the importance of Notre Dame Cathedral, that it's a place of worship, and that it's important to spend the money on it. And so the Arnold's family and LVMH, which I think was one of their companies, they pledged 200 million. Betancourt Mayer's family and L'Oreal pledged 200 million. The Penault family pledged 100 million. There was all these hundred millions and millions towards restoring Notre Dame. Were these gifts responsible philanthropy or corporate ostentation? Now, Father Sheehy was saying yesterday it was a good thing, that you can give money to the poor, but there are other ways of helping the poor also. So were these gifts responsible philanthropy, John, or corporate ostentation?
Money that's given for to renovate that terrible fire that happened in the Notre Dame Cathedral. That Notre Dame Cathedral it often receives up to 13 million or more visitors a year. It's a constant flow, and so it's a pretty good that people are going to Notre Dame, even though some of them sometimes don't seem to say a prayer, but perhaps it helps them. But now, I had the great pleasure of getting Mass in Notre Dame years ago when I was in my perhaps late 20s or thereabouts. And by pure fluke, when I was going in and I asked what time mass was at in the cathedral, and then the fellow gave me a ticket for to go into the a special place, and there was only one other lay person in there like me. Looked like an important person, and I wouldn't be considered myself important, but suffice to say that it was a very good experience, and it, of course, Mass was celebrated with the priest facing the tabernacle, and it was a proper tabernacle. Compared now to what the renovation has been, it has been successful as regards the windows and this, that, and the other, but the altar. It's the worst I ever saw. A steel affair, because I saw it there when they were all at it, including President Trump before he was president, and all these VIPs. And but when I saw the way the Archbishop and they were facing the congregation and this steel structure, and there seemed to be water coming out of it. Now the tabernacle, I couldn't see where it was. It didn't. I couldn't see it in the back. I don't know where it was, or how they were able to get to the tabernacle. There was no sign of it. So that's the most important thing as far as I'm concerned, the altar. And compared to what it was with the altar and the beautiful ambience in the cathedral and the beautiful choirs that were there too when you were beautiful. And there we had this business of them all facing the congregation and not the tabernacle because I didn't know where it was. So that was a dampener. If I'm in Paris, I'll visit it just to see what it is, and I found it very not very reverent for the overall history of Notre Dame, the way this altar was situated, this altar, this what they were saying the mass. I couldn't figure it out at all what sort of a monstrosity it was, because that's what I figured it was compared to what it was when I was there. And but yeah, that's Notre Dame. And but the money that the people gave, well, it was useful to be able to do up the church. But I presume whoever I can't imagine the bishops and wanting what they wound up with by way of an altar, whether it was higher ups in the political arena kind of wanted this kind of a thing. It's very hard to know, but I'd love to find out who was responsible for that monstrosity, which I regarded as that for to celebrate Mass in this type of a very peculiar sort of a. I couldn't even see the host. I could see nothing holy, reverent about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Father, do you want to say something there?
Yeah, I was going to say that, when people give large donations, you also have to ask the question, are there conditions with it? Are they expecting something and whatnot? Because in order for a donation to be really a true donation, it has to be, unconditional, but geared to the project, whatever
Yeah,
that
the
might
aims.
be.
Yeah.
But I think what happened, you see, with Notre Dame was, you had some of the so-called liturgists coming in and trying to modernize. You can't modernize an old building. An old building is an old building with all of its unique
Very
characteristics,
true. Yes.
and you can't modernize it. All it does actually is create a conflict within it, and I think that's what John is talking about. There's an immediate conflict within it. I saw that, for example, even in Knock when I went into that basilica the first time, and there are no kneelers there, and you can't even find when you go in there for the first time, you can't even find the tabernacle. So the so-called liturgists, I think, kind of got their way in Notre Dame, and that's why. And they also wanted to get rid of some of the stained glass windows as well and replace them with modern windows. But I don't think they were successful there. But just to go back to my original point is that when people make donations, before you accept them, make sure that that they're unconditional and that they're actually for that particular project, not to get a plaque on the wall, but to really restore what needs to be restored.
Okay. Yesterday we were talking about, that you have these highly publicized donations, and then you have people who donate in private. So, John, can a highly publicized donation still be morally valuable when it improves the donor's reputation? So,
And I think donations are a great help, or they were a great help in that, doing the work that was required in Notre Dame. And the question of as Father Sean says, there are any conditions attached to it, but I doubt it, because there was a variety of well-known companies, and there seem to be very wealthy companies in France that have this surplus money that they were able to donate to this church. And so it was donated for a good cause. And that's the way I look at it. And their moral, or their practicing their Catholic faith, or what have you. Well, that's them to save their immortal soul. So I think it's the fact that it helped to renovate the cathedral, and that was good. So when you do donate money of that caliber, and you're that wealthy, well, if it's doing for the good, that's what I consider good. There, whether they have this, that, or the other, is immaterial. The fact is that they've given it, and that's the end of it. And if they hadn't given it, I presume they'd have to get donations from ordinary people with their small amounts, and do it that way. So, but the fact that all these ones subscribe so much, they had more than enough to do the job, and that they must have had to have some money over. So I wonder what way they use that money. But
but
that's the way I look at it. And because one never knows the moral situation of anyone that's donating, and I wouldn't like to ascribe that to them, except to say that they've given the donations, and that's good.
yeah, but John Malone, when John Malone gives to charity, John Malone doesn't jump out in the streets of Oldcastle and say, "Look, I'm after giving you loads of money away." He doesn't do that, okay? But
No, you do it quietly, and you do what you can afford as well. You have to be prudent in that way. Prudence is a virtue, and you've got to be prudent. So you give what you can, and if you benefit, and you don't broadcast it, but you suggest that other people, if they want to do a bit of good, can go along that way quietly with what they can afford by way of a direct debit. Something small. My donation ever have to use of €10, but it's all these help. If enough people are doing that type of thing, it helps, and and do it quietly.
Father,
But yeah, you have to suggest it.
doing it quietly or doing it publicly, what do you think? Moral value?
Quietly, because like Jesus himself said, with the old woman who gave her last two coins to the temple treasury, and then all the other people, they gave out of their surplus. And so, like as I said before, it was no sacrifice for them, but it was a huge sacrifice for the woman. So, as I said, the moral value of giving is in proportion to the degree of sacrifice entailed in the giving.
Okay. This
So if a
last,
person does that to get publicity, that person gains no moral value from that whatsoever. Other people might praise them and put their picture in the paper and all the rest of that stuff. But from the standpoint of God, God says you did no more than your duty. So don't be looking for praise because you're not going to get any.
okay. Very good. I like that, Father. Okay. The last question. Okay, I think we all know the answer to this one. We'll consider what Carnegie did and the great work he did with the libraries. John, I want to ask you, do you think someone like Andrew Carnegie would have supported spending large sums on Notre Dame, or would he have prioritized poverty and homelessness? I think we know the answer to this. Go ahead.
It depends on it depends, quite frankly, Oliver, on what his priorities were. If he was a practicing Christian, it's a very straightforward thing what to do. If you're not a practicing Christian, but you have this goodness within your system and you want to do good for as many people as you possibly can, but then he did that. And I think anyone, myself, that gives money to help with causes of the caliber of Notre Dame. It's good, and uh, people have need for sometimes to get recognition for what they do, and I wouldn't dispute that in some ways now, quite frankly, because it might give a good example to others, and if they're giving up their surplus, it's good because a lot of people don't have the kind of money that these big companies have, and it's great that they did what they did. That's my belief. And Carney did what he did, and he did good. And I think people are doing good today, also helping people in different areas and doing it quietly. But whatever way to do it, as long as to do it, and God judges all, and He judges us as well. So we have to be very, very careful ourselves and making any allegation about anyone. If they're doing good and helping something to come into fruition and be a and so people can visit that cathedral in New York or any other cathedral that has suffered, because in France and there's some churches being burned. The churches in France are under the control of the state. It's not the people in the parish and that, it's the state. So that's where the problem probably arises from the point of view of what they've done in Notre Dame by way of the altar. That's to me the most important thing. Windows and all the rest of it is just edifice, but it's the celebration of the Holy Mass in a reverent fashion, in a proper order, is what I regard as the most important. And I couldn't see the reverence with what the monstrosity that I saw, because that's what I call it,
Hmm.
monstrosity.
I
Yeah.
suppose, look, Elon, or not Elon Musk, Carnegie,
Actually,
and
Carnegie, I
mm,
just want to say there that Carnegie actually didn't believe in any religion. He was a humanist,
that's right.
you know. And but the one thing that he did highlight was the whole idea of empathy, trying to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, and the importance of kindness. Those two qualities he definitely emphasized in his humanism.
Hmm. Now, the thing is, I suppose Andrew Carnegie, the way I look at Andrew Carnegie is he he done something very, very clever. He funded all these, I think it was 6,000 libraries all over the world. He was basically the internet of the day because he supplied books, information, knowledge to help people. And I think that was a fantastic way to do philanthropy.
Yeah, because he actually emphasized the importance, of the golden rule, do unto others as you would like them to do to you. And while he did recognize, the value of religion and, as the alcoholics say, believe in a higher power, but he also believed in the basic goodness, of people. And I think that's probably what drove him. Plus, of course, he had the resources. You know, it wasn't like he had to go out and dig ditches, in order to make money to support to provide all these libraries. He was blessed. He was blessed himself, and he shared his blessing.
And he
And
came,
ultimately, that's the Christian message as well, isn't it?
it is, and he came from very, very humble beginnings. And he also
Yes.
said, John, I want to ask John, he also said anybody who dies wealthy dies disgraced. I like that. What do you think, John?
Well, I think, for example, you can't take your money with you. You
You
come in with
can't.
nothing, you go out with nothing.
Yes.
So the business of like, it's pathetic if anybody just has money and doesn't do anything good with it. You do good with whatever abilities and so on that you have. You do as much good as you possibly can while you have a chance to do it. And of course, the great gift of the Catholic faith means that you have the tools to be able to go to Mass every Sunday, or the Vigil on Saturday, and go to confession once a month, and receive Holy Communion kneeling at the altar rails. I emphasise that, attended by a priest with a paten under the chin of the communicant. That's the way it was, and I'd love to see that again. That's the way it is for Mass is celebrated in the universal language of Latin, in any place where you receive it on the tongue. You don't put out your paw for it. So you receive it on the tongue, and I like that, and because there's reverence attached to it, and the business of what you're after asking me there, I probably digressed a bit. What did you ask me there, rather?
I was just saying, anybody who dies wealthy dies disgraced. That's what Andrew Carnegie
Oh
says.
yeah, well that'd be stupid, because the best thing, if they want to write a check and put whatever down into the coffin, then they won't be able to catch it.
We're
I mean, it's pathetic, isn't it?
we're out of time, unfortunately. And
I just
Father,
wanted to just one second there. I just wanted to say that God gives gifts not just to us, but through us.
oh, nice, very good. Father, if you want to give us your blessing there.
I'll be with you. May Almighty God bless you, the
Mhm.
Father, Son, and Holy
The Son of
Spirit,
the
Very,
Holy
and you
Spirit.
be
Amen.
with you
amen.
forever. Amen.
Thank
God
you
bless
both.
you all.
Good
Take
night. Good
care.
evening. Bye bye.
Bye.
You know,
Bye.
Oliver?
Bye.